Live. Okay guys, we're waiting for YouTube to catch up. Just one moment and it tells me we are alive. So that's awesome. Hey guys, welcome to our studio in the beautiful Emmeloord. And where is Emmeloord? It's in the Netherlands. So to make absolutely sure that you guys know what's going on, my name is Frank Dorov and today we are doing a special broadcast for our PhotoWhoa friends. Now, why did I tell you guys that I'm from the Netherlands? You may or may not hear it in my accent. I'm not a normal English speaking person. So sometimes during the broadcast, if you hear something where you go like, what? Yeah, that's probably something that I mispronounce or something that I don't know the word for. So bear with me. Today, it's about something that I absolutely love, but that actually did work a little bit against me. It's about black and white photography. So what is black and white photography? Is that just photography without color? Yeah and no. You have to realize that when you photograph something, there's always three little coordinates: the hue, the saturation, and the luminance, and those determine your color in your color space. Now, when we talk about black and white photography, we still talk about the RGB channels. The only thing that we don't have is the saturation. So that means that although we are still working with color images, we take out that saturation part. Now, does that mean that we don't have to use a color checker? Does that mean that we don't have to set white balance? Does that mean that? And all those questions we're going to answer today. So the first thing I always do when I want to do black and white photography is think ahead. Now, when you do a normal photo shoot, for example with a model, and you shoot in color and you shoot with beautiful dresses, you already know, in the moment you look at it, you go like, okay, this looks like this. You put your lighting in there, and as soon as the studio is dark, it will look great, right? Yes. But with black and white photography, we have a little bit of a problem, because when we shoot it, I'm actually going to shoot it in color. And it may or may not look really weird in color, and that's because we are not trained to look at a color image, how it should look in black and white. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles we have to overcome today, is thinking about how does something look after retouching. And there's only one thing you guys can do, and that's literally do it a lot and just think about it. And at one point you will start to literally see how your lighting is set up. Now, when I'm shooting black and white, I absolutely love to do it with high contrast lighting. So today what we're going to do is we're going to use open reflectors, we're going to use strip lights, we're going to use everything that's focused light. I'm going to show you the lighting setups. I'm going to show you the photo shoot with our beautiful model Lois and a beautiful red dress. It's a shame we have to shoot it in black and white today. And of course, I'm going to explain a little bit about the retouching. And I put myself up to a challenge for that. Now, we all know that today Lightroom is absolutely amazing. All the AI in there, the select subject, the layer masks. You now literally can do a lot with local adjustments. I even call it layer masks. Did you hear it? It's not really layer masks, but it comes so incredibly close. So I thought, you know what would be a really cool challenge is to shoot everything to an iPad Pro, edit it on an iPad Pro, only using Lightroom. Yeah, maybe I'm going to regret this one, but you never know. Now, during the broadcast, we have our chat open, so you can ask whatever you want. This is also being recorded, so we don't expect a lot of people to watch it live, but in the recording, the same thing goes. If you look it on YouTube, leave comments in the chat on YouTube or in the comments. I will respond to them within 24 hours, so don't worry about that. Okay, the gear we're going to use today. I'm going to use a Sony a7R IV. And the 24 to 72.8 G Master. Now you might wonder like, hey Frank, is that a magic lens? No, not really. The reason I'm using a 24 to 70 is actually pretty simple to explain. When I started out with model photography, somebody told me the best portrait lens is a 70 to 200. So what did Frank do? He didn't even think about it. I trusted the guy, I put on a 70 to 200 and I started shooting. And in all honesty, it looked freaking awesome. So why change lenses, right? Yeah, the only thing was I didn't think at that moment because it worked, right? And this is the thing that you will find a lot in your career and in your progress as a photographer or as a musician or as a recording artist or whatever you do. You will find out that people tell you stuff and that really works. But then you start to experiment with other stuff and you find out that it actually works better. So what happened? My 70 to 200 broke down and I had to return it to Sony for repairs. And at that point, it took a long time to repair. So I still had that 24 to 70. So in the studio, I started to think, you know what, just put the 24 to 70 on and we'll see what happens. The thing is, my photography just jumped up like crazy by only switching that lens. And I'm going to tell you first, before we start, why that happened. And the reason is actually incredibly simple if you think about it. When we shoot, we always think about composition, right? And in all honesty, I think that the composition should be there in camera. So before you take the shot, the composition should be there. Maybe you can crop a little bit, but not too much. It should be 100% or 99% there. And the thing is, when you think about the 70-200, you are always shooting on a longer lens setting, so 70 or 200 or everything in between. But even 70 is pretty long. And what happens with a longer lens? Exactly, it compresses. So that means that it looks awesome for portraits, right? You whack the backdrop out of focus, it looks absolutely amazing. But do you really want that backdrop to be out of focus all the time? I think it's a trick that becomes boring very, very fast. But when I shoot on 70 or 200, they both compress. And what happens when a lens compresses? Very simple. A lens doesn't see depth. The only thing a lens sees is something that's in front of the camera is bigger, something that's further away becomes smaller. Look at this. My hand is next to my face, it's pretty small, right? But now the more I move the hand this side, I can even just squeeze my face. Do you see that, how big my hand becomes? Even here, it's even bigger. And when I go here, it's not. The longer your lens is, the less that effect is pronounced, if you know what I mean. It's affected. So when I'm using a 70-200 lens and I'm shooting on 200, it will only move like this. Now when I shoot on 70, it will only move like this, and that's okay. When I shoot on 50, it will start to do this. 24, it will start to do this. And that means that with a 70-200, I'm actually limited to 1 or 2 looks. When I'm using a 24-70, I have that wide angle look, I have that 50mm look that a lot of people also like for portraits because it's nice and wide but still a little bit long, and I have that 70. So the first tip I want to give you guys is don't always use the same lens. Try to mix it up a little bit. I get a lot of emails also from people like, hey Frank, I'm totally burned out with photography at the moment. I don't know what to do. I lost my interest in photography. I don't want to retouch anymore. What can I do? Change your lens, change your lighting, get a new accessory on Marktplaats or eBay or a flea market and try to figure something new out. Because if you learn something new, that will trigger you to do some cool stuff. Okay, for the first setup, I have my model Lois and we have Venetian blinds. I don't know if they're called Venetian blinds, we call them Luxaflexen. Yeah, that was Dutch. And what we're going to do is we're going to create that really nice film noir look. Now, what is that film noir look? Let me switch very quickly to our studio so I can show you what I mean. So we're going to go to, let me see, camera 3. Let's do camera 2. Okay, so here you see the setup. And we have our Venetian blinds, we have our model Lois, and we have a strobe in the back. But that's not really the strobe we're going to use. Now, when you look at a set like this and you see those Venetian blinds, you already know what we're going to do, right? We're not going to shoot from this, well, maybe we are, but we want those nice lines on our model. We want those shadow lines. But how do you get those shadow lines? A lot of people get burned out by this, by not getting those shadow lines. The only thing they get is like a soft, nice looking image, but it's not what they want. The trick is in distance. The further you place your strobe away from the Venetian blinds and the closer you place your model to the Venetian blind, the sharper those shadows will be. We call that the edge transfer, so the shadow transfer. So when I close my light towards the Venetian blinds, that edge transfer will become softer, and the more I move it away from the Venetian blinds, it gets harder. If I move my model away from the Venetian blinds, it gets softer. If I move her towards the Venetian blind, it gets harsher. So what do I use for this? Well, if you look in the back of the studio, and you can't see that at the moment, that's why I tell you guys, there's a strobe with a very narrow grid. But that narrow grid doesn't really hit it. So Brian, can you aim the camera towards the back so I can show the people? Let me see, that's camera 1. There we go. So you can see that there are 2 flags over there. Brian, can you move a little bit more that way that they can see the strobe all the way in the back? More. There we go. So there you see the strobe. It's an Expert 500 from Ansel. And you see the 2 flags. Now, the 2 flags are there for a reason. Now, when I use that very narrow grid or a snoot, I still have a lot of subject that is lit, and I really want it to be really nice and well lined up, a little bit more like the hardcore lighting, you know, a little bit rough, but there's a distinct look in there, and that's very, very narrow light. So I'm using those flags somewhere in between the middle, so not straight in front of the Venetian blinds because then it will get really harsh, but a little bit in the middle, so it's soft and it's a little bit harsh and it takes away some of that light. So how does that look? Well, there's only one way to find out, right? And that's when Anouk is going to take over here, and I'm going to go in the studio and we're going to do some really nice shots. Well, at least I hope. Because this is live, we didn't practice anything, so let's go. Are you ready? Are you ready, Anouk, to take over?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. So in the screen you will see, actually you will see the results coming in Cascable. And let me grab a light meter. There we go. So I'm shooting tethered, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shoot just very simple. I'm going to shoot it from the angle here. So I'm going to stand here. I'm going to shoot my model. I'm not going to hurt you, don't worry. And we want to make sure that that light hits the model correctly. So where do I meter? Now, this is a little bit of a tricky situation because at the moment there's so much light here that I don't really see where the light is hitting our model. So what I'm going to ask, can you see through the, can you see the light? No, right? Okay, I was afraid for that. And this is one of the things, always ask your model if she can see the light. Because if your model can see the light, she's in the hot spot of the light. So what we're going to do is we're going to raise this just a little bit, I guess. There we go. Now you can see the light, right? Yeah, I thought so. Now let's lower this a little bit. There we go, just above her head. Let's move this one. There we go. Oh, that's nice. Nice. So I want a really nice flat lighting. Or not flat, I want it a little bit rectangular. And I'm going to meter just in front of the Venetian blinds. And I know this is not going to give me the perfect exposure. 5.6, 8.0, sorry. Let's go down a little bit. There we go, F8. That's okay for now. Okay, first things first. I'm going to take a shot, very simple, straight on. So actually from a shooting position. So let's go to F8. We did have a little bit of a problem with the camera, but it seems to have worked itself out, so I hope it stays correct. So if you see really weird exposures, that's actually not my fault. There we go. Now, the first thing you're going to see is it looks okay. You get these really nice lines, but there's a little bit of a shadow in the back. Sometimes you don't want that shadow there. So what do you do if you don't want that shadow there? Very simple. You move your body. I always compare it to Dexter, the blood spatter specialist from, well, the show Dexter. When he comes into a set, he always starts to draw lines, and he exactly knows where the victim was, what kind of material was used to kill the victim, and it's literally with all those lines where he sees what's going on. So when we shoot an image, also draw those lines, and at that point you can literally see where the shadow is going to be. So just by moving myself a little bit here, I can literally take that shadow out. I'm also losing a little bit of that blue backdrop. And that's actually awesome because for this set, I don't want that blue backdrop. I literally want the other one. I want it really dark. I want my model to jump out. I also like the leading lines more. So when I look at, for example, a shot a little bit more straight on, and now you will get that nasty shadow again, this shot doesn't really work for me. It's nice, don't get me wrong, but when you shoot black and white, I always want that storytelling aspect in my images. I don't just want an image, I want an image where people go like, wow, that looks awesome. And what is one of the things that landscape photographers use a lot? Leading lines, correct. But as a fashion photographer or a portrait photographer or a cosplay photographer, whatever you do, you can also use leading lines. And leading lines are actually very simple. Find something that leads your viewer into the image. So in this case, the Venetian blinds. I'm going to shoot it under a lower angle. I'm going to use the flip-up screen. Very low angle, under a little bit of a lower viewpoint, and there you go, look at this. Now when you go like, ooh, Frank, I really like this, but maybe from a little bit higher, no problem. It will give you a totally different look. But it depends on the story you want to tell. When I look at something like this, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I like that blue a little bit in the back. Maybe you want it totally black, move a little bit more. But when I shoot it from a lower angle, I get a little bit more excitement in my shot. I think it's a little bit more of a hero shot. So let's go from a lower angle, ask the model to go a little bit closer to the Venetian blinds. There we go. Ooh, I love this. There we go, look at this. That's really nice. Now I'm shooting on f8 for the very simple reason with Venetian blinds I want to make sure that I hit that focus point. When I'm shooting on 2.8 I can be very lucky. Knowing me, I'm probably not, and I'm going to focus on the Venetian blinds. By shooting on f8 I have more than enough latitude in my focus, of course. And by the way, I recently tested a really cool piece of software, Topaz PhotoWhoa, where you can literally nail the focus even better. So also make sure you check that out. And PhotoWhoa also has a lot of nice offers with software, of course, that can enhance your focus or that can literally save some images that are a little bit, well, not 100% correct. Let me put it mildly. So a few images from a lower angle because I really like that. I like the reflections there. But there's more you can do. I can also ask my model to look through the Venetian blinds. So open them up just a little bit. For example, there, yes. And now I can, for example, do this. And now use my wide angle to give it even a more weird look. There we go, I really like this. Nice lowers. Now, of course, we want to make sure that the eyes are in. So this one, no, not really. So let's do that again. Open it up. There we go. Focus on the eyes. Make my composition, and there we go. That's much better. And there we go again. Oh, I love it. You see how those eyes really blink through? I really like the shots. I like the leading lines. I like the wide angle effect. But we're not there yet. It doesn't really excite me yet. So, although we have the Venetian blinds on this side, how if we just move, open the door of our virtual room and move here? Can you look? There we go. So how do you think about this? When we shoot it from the other side, we get a totally different look. Way more intense, way more mysterious. And in my opinion, it just looks way better. So let's just combine it a little bit. Let's go here. And let's also get some of that Venetian blinds in. There we go. Maybe even go all the way here. There we go. Now, in all honesty, it looks nice. Really nice and dark. Although this one is a little bit too much. And there's always something in film noir and in other movies, and it's called lens flares. Now, I thought about using lens flares here. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to use it the way that you normally would expect it. What I want to do is I want to use it as a fill-in light, but also a little bit, maybe to give a little bit of an accent. And we already have a strobe set up for this. That's a really noisy strobe. Let's turn it on from this side. I'm not going to do it straight on my model like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to feather the light away. And that's the nice thing about lighting. If you aim it straight at somebody, you get really harsh light. But if you move it away from a person, you will get a really nice soft quality of light. And this is one of the tricks that we use a lot for hairs. Now, when you start shooting hairs and you start using accent lights, most of the time those hairs will look really synthetic. Like they jump out and you even see the dust moving in your studio. So that's terrible. And that's because the light is often too harsh. And let's be honest, when you start out with photography, you don't have the money for big softboxes. So you use open reflectors or you use the more harsher quality of light with softboxes that are a little bit smaller, doesn't use diffusion panels, etc. Now, the trick is you can still get nice soft light, even from a harsh light source, by moving that light away from your model and only lighting the model with the side of the light. And the nice thing about that is, at that point you can move that light in some locations even straight into your lens. So if you aim that light straight into your lens, you get the full power in your lens, meaning lens flare, and you get a little bit of light on your model, meaning a nice accent light. In this case, we're just going for the accent light, not for the lens flare. If it happens, that's okay. If it doesn't, no problem, because the angle isn't really fit for lens flares. But still, just to be sure, I'm going to take my sun hood off. You never know. Maybe we're going to capture something that's amazing. Oops. There we go. As you can see, I'm just using it as a little bit of a side light. So not too much. It's barely visible in this shot. But now I have a little bit more latitude by also moving here. There we go. So now it's not that dark. So now I can move around my model a little bit easier and still get something cool. Now, of course, you want to see something really cool, right? Or not? Yeah, okay, I see you want. Okay, so let's move this light. Let's move it behind our model. A little bit more on the front. Aim it away from our model. Aim it a little bit towards the lens which I'm going to use. And pump up the volume. Now this is a little bit cooking. I didn't use a light meter for this one, but I'm just going to try it. And probably it's way too strong, but it will give you that nice, a little bit blown out effect, as you can see here. So now we're going from a darker image a little bit more to a more daring image. So can you look through the Venetian blinds again? Er doorheen kijken. Yes, there you go. Awesome. A little bit lower. Can you open those? There you go. Oh, that's nice. Nice. And now when I'm going here, now we're getting that lens flare in. So I created something totally for myself with 3 different looks, all with one setup. Now in all honesty, this looks a little bit bad when you look at it in color. We're gonna fix that later on in Photoshop, or in Lightroom of course, in black and white. First we're gonna do some others. Nice, really like this. And just showing you guys how much that accent light does. Let's turn it off again. And of course you can also turn it on and then just lower the output a lot, just to give it a little bit of a kiss of light. Okay, there we go. Nice. This is a more moody version. And of course you can zoom in on your model. Nice. Okay, for this setup, let's see what we can do in Lightroom. Lois is going to change. We're going to switch over the studio a little bit. And then we're going to be back with set number 2. And that set is going to be harsh portrait lighting. But first, let's dive into Lightroom and see what we can do with these. Okay. Let's switch over. Anyway, did you do picture in picture? Okay, awesome. Okay, let's switch to my camera. There we go. So the first thing we have to do, of course, is go through these images. Now at this point, I don't want to go through all those images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to Lightroom. And to do that, I have to do something first. I have to copy these to tethering. Normally it would work that way. There we go. Awesome. Now let's go to Lightroom. There we go. Let's make a new album called Lois. And let's import our images from files. Let's go to tethering. Select all and import. Okay, now of course the first thing I want to make absolutely sure is that we find the nicest images, but for now I'm just going to show you some stuff. So normally we go through all these images and go like, okay, which one is the really best, which one isn't, and you know how it works, right? So I'm going to put syncing off for now to make sure that we don't oversaturate our internet. We have to make sure that that stays the same. Okay, so let's quickly go through the images. Which one do I like? This one I absolutely love, so give it 5 stars. Oh, this one I also like, 5 stars. It's too close for me, but it's cool. Oh, that one is nice too. That one is not good, so let's give that an X. This one is nice. Also cool. Let's go a little bit. Ooh, like that one too. Now, in all honesty, the ones with the light in the back, I'm not really feeling them yet. I think the other ones can be a little bit more interesting. I like that one, by the way. Yeah, I think one from the backlighting, I think this one. Okay, so now let's filter this all into 5 stars and more. So we have a few left, so this one. And then when I'm honest, I like the other one better. So that one, ooh, that one is even more better. More better, is that a word? That one I like, that one is cool. But when I have to choose, yeah, I think this one is less. Okay, that's cool. And this one is also nice. Okay, so now you might wonder like, okay, Frank, now that whole retouching part, how long does it take? I think you have to start smart. So in other words, use a color checker, use a calibrated monitor, and make sure that you use a light meter on the set so you don't have to adjust any adjustments with, for example, exposure. As you can see here, the images are pretty much how I want them to be. I don't have to change exposure, I don't have to change anything with shadows or highlights because this is literally how I shot it. So now I can go into, for example, setup. But did you ever hear about presets? Yes, of course, because PhotoWhoa also sells a lot of preset packs. Now, in my personal opinion, a preset pack is absolutely awesome as a starting point. But from that starting point up, you have to build your own looks. So for today, I'm not going to use a preset pack. I'm just going to do it manually. So I'm going to show you my complete workflow for that black and white. Now, you might wonder like, hey Frank, do you start with black and white or do you start in color? That's a very good question. Because in black and white, I sometimes expect my images to be a little bit on the overexposed side in the highlights, while in color, I can absolutely not accept that. So when I'm looking at the image here and I go like, okay, this looks nice, let's add a little bit of contrast. I'm already going like, ooh, maybe on the hand it's a little bit too much. Let's lower the highlights, let's give it a little bit of shadow detail, and there we go. But this isn't really what you want to do, right? Because we're working in black and white. So the first thing you do is you go into color, how weird it sounds, and you click the black and white. There we go. Now you see a totally different image. And when I look at this image, it doesn't really excite me. It doesn't really do anything for me. I actually don't really like it at all. Now, remember when I told you guys that the color checker is still very important and that white balance is important? Look at this. And this can be one of the coolest tricks you can do with black and white photography. Change the color temperature and look at this. This is already the first tip I want to give you guys to get total control over your images. Even a black and white image still has an RGB component. So that means that when you enhance stuff and you change the color red, it will have an impact on all that was supposed to be red in the image. And although it's black and white, there's still that red channel. So you're still using RGB pixels to create a black and white image. I know it's something to wrap your head around, but that RGB is still there. And that's something where we can play with a lot. So let's first start with light. Okay, when I look at this and I look at black and white, I want it a little bit more on the edge. So let's do this. Let's drop that down just a little bit. There we go. Awesome. Now in color, I'm going to skip that for now. But let's go for the effects. Now, I like clarity in black and white. I like texture. So let's go full blast. That looks okay. Let's try a little bit with dehaze. There we go. And of course, a little bit of a vignette. There we go. Already nice. Go back to light. Go to curves. And what I like with curves is I like to drop it a little bit on the bottom and a little bit up on the edge. It's a little bit, it's very, very slight S-curve. And I don't do it all the time, but sometimes. This is the first part where you can start to freak out with colors. Go into your curves and go into your channels. For example, red. Look at this. So with this one, you can create certain looks, like for example a sepia look or any look you want. I would highly advise you, if you choose a look here, for example this one with a little bit of that red in there, do it on all the images, because otherwise in black and white I want to see one continuous look and I don't want to see one in red, one in blue. It just doesn't look nice for me. So I'm going to do it without. I'm just going to leave it black and white. So Frank, can you still work with colors? Yes, that's the cool part. Look at this. Go to black and white mix, and now you will see that we still have, for all those colors, we have a luminance slider. So for example, the red, which is of course in the lips and the dress, I can only move down red. Now, what I want to do with the red is actually I'm looking at the face, and I want to make sure that the face is nice and soft in quality. So when I do this, you can see that it becomes harsh. When I turn it up, it becomes nice and soft. And I can do the same thing for the oranges. There you go, look at this. No need for skin retouching anymore. You just create that really nice, almost like a porcelain look in your image. Do the yellows for example, the hairs. There we go. Now, because the face is done, we're going to switch over to the rest. So let's see what we have. Let's see if we have some blues in there. And as you can see, I'm just moving it around like crazy, up and down. And at one point, there we go, that's the blue I was looking for. So do I want it gone in the backdrop, or do I want the backdrop to show through? In this case, I want to show the backdrop just a little bit. Now, because in our studio, we already know which backdrops we're going to use. So we are actually using contrasting colors. So for example, if the model is wearing blue, and I shoot against a blue backdrop, I don't have that control between controlling my backdrop and controlling my model, because they're both wearing blue. But in this case, he was wearing a red dress and a blue backdrop. So that means I can control the balance between my backlight, or the backdrop, and my model without using extra strobes, simply by lowering or raising the luminance of blue. As you can see here, and the backdrop just comes up. So although you might think that photography with models is only cool and you just drop a model in front of a backdrop and you shoot, ooh, there's so much more going on, because we want to make sure that our model really fits the backdrop. But later on in Photoshop, and in this case with black and white, I know I'm going to manipulate those colors. So I want to make sure that I use contrasting colors between the backdrop and my model's clothing. So you have to think ahead with this kind of stuff. Okay, let's see, magenta and purple. Ooh, look at the lips. Let's see, do we want dark lips or bright lips? I like the dark lips a lot, so let's see what we can do with that. Oh, this is so incredibly cool. Look at that. That's nice. You can even do it on local adjustments, but in this case I'm not going to do that. I think this looks pretty cool. So let's copy this to the other images. Let's do everything, copy settings, and let's say paste. And that works pretty well for this one. The only thing I have to do is add just a little bit, remove the contrast just a little bit. There we go, I really like this. Let's do the same thing here. Nice. This one is a little bit too harsh because I'm shooting from the other side, so I'm going to lower the clarity just a little bit. Everything else I like. And let's do this one too. Now, because I'm using that backlighting, this one needs a different treatment. So with this one, I'm going to lower that. Give it a little bit more of that dehaze look maybe. Go into color, and go into that black and white mix. And just play around again. In this case, let's overblow it just nicely. There we go. Ooh, I like those lines coming in when I lower the orange. Nice. Let's see if we can manipulate blue again. Okay, nice. Let's lower the contrast and let's lower this one just a little bit. There we go. Okay, and of course go for effects and go for vignetting, a little bit more extreme. Awesome. Now, in all honesty, when I look at the images, I really like the ones without that backlighting a little bit more. So like this one, that's awesome. So let's just turn it down just a little bit. There we go. And you see that the lines also change when I change the contrast. Like for example, here I take the lines almost away, and here it just drops in very, very nicely. I want to add a little bit less shadows here. pump up the brightness and go for color. Use the color balance to balance the whole image. And as you can see here, that has a huge impact. I love working with the color balance to just create your own look. Now in color, it will look absolutely terrible because you're changing the white balance. But as you can see, white balance also in black and white photography has a huge impact on your images and can create something that's way more interesting than just a normal simple shot. So in this case, as you can see here, we have some really cool shots. And with this one, I think I may even angle it just a little bit more. There we go. Awesome, that looks really, really nice. Okay, C's back for the second set. So let's go back to Cascable. The only thing is I have to reconnect my camera now because I went into Lightroom. So reconnect. And let's see if that works. Annemiek, is my camera still on? Or did I turn it off?
No, it's on.
Okay, can you turn it off and on again? IT department, can you turn it on and off again? Or off and on again? Oh, it already is here. Thank you, Annemiek. It worked. Awesome. I do have to explain that a little bit. So let me go back to here, because this is something that a lot of people struggle with. Now, as you can already see on my head, we do a lot with tethering. And we always call ourselves the tethering specialists for the very simple reason. I've started tethering when I still used that little yellow connector composite to a CRT monitor to literally see what I was doing via the video output. It was horrendous, but it did work. And the thing is that when you shoot into an iPad Pro, and this is one of the tips I want to give you guys, very soon we're going to do a digital classroom with everything about tethering and workflow and whatnot more. But this I want to throw in for you guys. If you start using tethering, always think about connecting ports. And what do I mean with this? Sometimes devices lock ports. And what you saw happening now is actually something that Apple does a lot. So don't panic when this happens. When you leave the app you're shooting tethered in, or when you connect your hard drive, sometimes, you go to another app and that will actually claim that port. And you can close the app whatever you want, it still doesn't release that port. So sometimes just turn off your camera, turn it back on again, it's like a Windows PC, and it works like a charm. So don't panic, just turn it on and off again. Or turn it off and on again. What is it, Annemiek? Turn it off and on again, right? Because if you turn it on and off again, it doesn't work, right?
Which modifier do you want to use?
I want to use the beauty dish. Do you have that one?
Yes.
And of course, we also want to use the strip light. So we're going to use two light setups in this case. I want to create something that has a lot of oomph, but also can be very, very powerful. So the first setup I'm going to do, I'm going to shoot 2 in 1 set. First, I'm going to place my model straight against the backdrop using a beauty dish, and we're just going to photograph it straight on, a little bit like a butterfly lighting, so with a little bit of an under the nose butterfly. After that, I'm going to move my model a little bit more forward, and we're going to use a Rembrandt lighting, but not like you were, well, what you used to. We're going to use it a little bit more creative, with nice side lighting to enhance the cheekbones and the jawline. This is a very tricky setup. It looks very simple, but trust me, it's pretty tricky, especially with all the studio lights on. So I think I'm gonna make 2 or 3 shots before it works. Let me see. Okay. If you have any questions, again, leave them in the comments, please. We have a chat open, so you can ask whatever you want. And it's, of course, recorded, so if you watch this later on, no problem at all. You can just watch the recording and ask questions then. We're flexible. Okay, we're gonna switch over to the studio again. I hope Annemiek is ready. Are you ready, Annemiek?
Yes.
I see. Because now Annemiek is in the image. So let's switch over again to picture in picture. There we go. Awesome. Okay, let's see that I don't break my neck. Don't laugh. Okay, let's grab a light meter. First setup, just a beauty dish, not from that distance, but a little bit closer. And I'm gonna place my model. Wow, Lois, you are stunning. Always be nice to your model, even if you don't like him. Just tell him, you look stunning. And if you really like him, you say, you look amazing. You look amazing. I know. And that always works. Tell him, when you really like him, it's amazing. Now you might wonder, Frank, why do you make that joke? Very simple. One of the most important things in a photo shoot is that your model feels at ease. Even if you're not feeling so well, even if you are a little bit down, or maybe you're a little bit sick, don't let your model be pulled down by your, well, how do you call it, your condition. Because your photo shoot has to be 100% perfect. And you can only do it 100% perfect if your model is at ease. Because that's the one who's being photographed. If you're a little bit grumpy behind the camera, it doesn't really matter. As long as the model is smiling. Are you smiling?
I'm smiling.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let's first aim that light up. So I'm gonna open this up. And I'm gonna aim it all the way up. There we go. I'm gonna go really close to you. I'm gonna aim it down. Oh, I love this look already. This looks amazing. So, great. Do you see she's smiling? That's the way that you want it. Let me see, where's the light meter? Okay, there we go. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. 1, 2. Oops. I love doing that. That's why I use a light meter, because it's cool. And you get proper exposures, that also helps, by the way. But it's more the cool factor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very manly, right?
Yeah,
Having a light meter.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's awesome, right?
Awesome.
It's like 007. So if you want to be cool in front of your models, use a light meter. It's awesome.
Did you turn the other flash off?
I did turn the other flash off, I think, or did you? You didn't, right? Oh, okay, then I will turn this one off. Only now I forgot what the light meter said. I believe F8. I guess F8. I hope. Okay. Very simple lighting setup. Just to prove you guys that it doesn't have to be complicated. Now, what I like about this lighting setup is that little bit of an accent under her nose. We call that the butterfly lighting. As you can see, I'm not using a real butterfly lighting, because if I'm doing a real butterfly, okay, look this way, and then straight into the camera. So also with your nose a little bit, there we go. Chin down just a little bit. So this is a little bit more like a butterfly, where you can really see the butterfly under her nose. But when I look at a shot like this, it's boring. It doesn't really excite me. It doesn't give me any extra oomph factor. So what I want to do is I want to create a little bit of a darker side and a little bit more of a lighter side. So if she looks that way, I'm shooting from a lower angle. You get that really majestic looking image, almost like a fashion shot from the 60s or the 50s if you make it black and white. But when I look at this shot, I still think there's some improvement. So what happens when I let her look that way? Now I'm creating a darker spot on one side. Can you lower the trees? Yes, not the trees. Can you lower your Christmas tree for me? Don't laugh, look serious. Oh my. There we go, that's better. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think my shutter speed was a little bit on the high side. Now, some people say you have to see the eyes of the model. Let's be honest, doesn't this look freaking awesome? This looks way better. And sometimes you don't need to see the eyes of the model. Sometimes you want that mysterious look. And if you want to see the eyes of the model, no problem. Can you take your hairs out in that side? There we go. Would be weird if she took a wig off, but... Okay. And you see, I'm always joking with my model. Even if I'm not feeling up to it, I'm always joking. And the reason for this is very simple. If she feels at ease, I'm fine, because then I'm getting great shots. Great. So when I look at these shots, I'm getting really happy. I'm getting really excited. But we're not there yet, because I promised you guys also the Rembrandt lighting. So this is a take on the butterfly lighting. With butterfly lighting, it's important that you place your strobes high up, aiming down, creating that butterfly under her nose. but it's also very nice to get a beauty portrait, like totally lit. It's also great for families or CEOs or whatever. It's a very powerful lighting setup, sorry. So let's change this over. For Rembrandt lighting, what we want is a little bit of a triangle over her nose. So we have to make sure that the light falls over her nose and creates that Rembrandt triangle. In this case, well, we're going to move the light over here. And I'm going to move it all the way to the side. And this is a little bit weird sometimes for people, because we're always used to shooting straight on to our models. But in this case, I'm shooting it from the side. I can actually lower it, I think, a little bit. Make it a little bit more close. There we go. Nice. Aim it up just a little bit. There we go. This is really nice. Grab the light meter again. Now some people say like, hey, why don't you take a few test shots? It doesn't really look professional, right? If you take a few test shots and you don't nail the lighting and your client goes like, hey man, what's going on? Yeah, I just have to test something out. It doesn't really work. And with the light meter, you hold it in front of the area you want correctly lit. And the light meter literally tells you f8.2. So I'm lowering the strobe 2/10 of an f-stop and I'm at f8 and I have perfect exposure. Okay, light is from the side. Don't make this mistake. Okay, look straight at me. This is not wise, because this doesn't look right. This looks really, really dark. I don't see any Rembrandt triangle. The image is way, way off. So what do? First thing you do is let your model look that way. Chin down just a little bit. There we go. So now for the first time we have that Rembrandt triangle in there. Just a little bit over her nose. Do you see that? But in all honesty, I needed a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is now I'm just moving this strobe. And as I mentioned before, it's really hard for me to see at the moment because there's so much light. And normally in the studio it's dark and I only see my strobes. And now I actually don't see my strobes, but only the studio lighting. And as mentioned before, we sometimes have a little bit of a mishap in the camera. There we go, that looks better. But it's really, really dark, right? So let's open it up even more. There we go. Let's see if this works. Nice. And I'm not going to go any further. This is about it. But I don't see any cat slides. So Lois, can you look a little bit up? Ooh. That's nice. Now look at this. Now you can see the cat slides in her eyes. Now the image is coming alive. Now the image is being sculpted. Now I really like this. So let's add our strip light. And the strip light is going to create a really nice filling on the sides for the cheekbones and of course for the jawline. So I have to make sure that I don't hit my model. Somehow they don't appreciate that. Right? You don't want to go home with blue eyes. You already have those. There we go. Place it behind our model, really against the wall. Aim it a little bit this way. No, it's okay. Let's turn it on. Let's aim it at our model and then feather it away. There we go. It's a little bit cooking. Cooking with light, a little bit more, a little bit less. I don't know yet. I think it's a little bit too strong, but we'll see. Yeah, a little bit too strong, but you can already see what I'm going for. The really nice light under her cheekbone, under her jaw. Keep calling it cheekbones, don't know why. Okay. There we go, I love it. Now the model really comes loose. You don't really see the accent lighting, but you can still see the accent lighting. In other words, you can see the jawline, but it's not like, hey, here I go, I'm an accent light. It's more subtle. Love it. But Frank, you have this beautiful backdrop from ClickPro Backdrops. Why don't you use the backdrop? Because that blue is really nice, right? Yeah, well, I do have more strobes. But how many of you guys have more strobes than two? Okay, a lot. So don't worry about that. You have a lot of strobes, I know. Stop. Okay, you have more than 2 strobes, I know. The thing is, do you also control those strobes? And the more strobes you use in a set, the more you can get into trouble by crossing lines or tripping over a wire, or simply put, if you have 3 strobes and you can do it with 2, you have 1 extra strobe for an effect, right? Now when we look at the strip light, you can literally see that the strip light is very tall, but very narrow. So that means that we can literally steer that light towards our model. But as you look at how it's set up now, it's literally on portrait mode, so it's vertical. How about if we change that? Because I'm only shooting portraits, right? So let's change this light. And also change the angle. So I'm going to do this. Let's see what happens. And there we go. Now I'm creating also some light behind my model. So I have only 1 strobe, but I'm using it as 2 or 3. Okay, so I really like this, but I want more light on that beautiful backdrop. So let's angle the light even more. There we go. You see the trick, right? It's only small movements, huge impact. This I really like. Now the backdrop really comes alive. I still have that accent light on my model. I really like this shot. Nice. There's a little bit of that strobe in the side, so let's crop that off. Nice. Love it, Lois. Let's go from a slightly lower angle. Ooh, and let's give it a little bit more contrast. Now you might wonder, like, hey Frank, a little bit more contrast. How did you do that? By moving around. Moving around your model controls contrast. So if I want it flat, I can shoot from here. It's not really flat, but it's okay flat. When I look at the images, this is not what you really want. When I shoot it from here, oh, for okay. So I really like this. So here the contrast becomes a little bit more interesting, as you can see. But what if I move all the way over here and shoot straight into that light source from a slightly higher angle? Look at this. This looks nice, right? But it doesn't have that impact. Now watch this. If I turn off this strobe, I actually have a whole other set in this. Because now I have this beautiful high contrast look. I can shoot from a high angle down or from a lower angle up. Maybe even include the light source, why not? You can always clone it out if you want. There we go. Now turn this one on again. And the only thing I have to do is move towards here and shoot it like this. There we go. Isn't that awesome? Wow. Great shots. Do you have another set? Okay, change. We're going to go back into Lightroom for a second. Do we have any questions in the chat, Annemiek?
No.
No questions. Oh, okay. For this one, I only want to use the strip light, Annemiek. Okay, so let's do the same thing. We're going to do done. We're going to copy the new images on this iPad. I just do all, why not? Copy them to tethering. Okay, great. Go into Lightroom. And of course, Annemiek, can you see why it doesn't charge at the moment? Let's go.
Cable in the adapter.
Okay, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay, let's turn everything in. Oh, Annemiek, I don't have... Okay, there we go. Yeah, now it charges. Great. Okay, let's turn this off. It doesn't matter. Okay. It's now loading the images. So let's go through them really fast. And as before, I'm first gonna select the images. In all honesty, I already like this one a lot. This one we have to lose. I also like this one. It's nice, but not perfect. That's way too dark. This is okay. This is okay. That's better. So let's take that one out. But I like the ones with the accent much better. This one is too bright on the sides. This one is getting there. There we go. Love this pose. Very cool. But I like it with the backdrop in a little bit more. There we go. Look at this expression. That's awesome. And this is one of the things that I also look for. I'm not only looking for lines in a shot. I'm not only looking for the perfect exposure or the perfect this or the perfect that. I'm looking for an image that tells me something, that tells me a story, that literally just takes me to another place, in other words. Oh. Let's see if we have something that's nicer. This one is really cool. This one is nice. Okay, I think we got it. Okay, let's go back to filtering and let's do 5 stars and more. Okay, this one, yes. That one, yes. That one, okay. I think that one is nicer. That one is cool. And I think, in all honesty, the other one is, I think, better. Yeah. Yeah, I like that one a lot more. Okay, we're going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to start very simple. First, we're going to go into color. We go to black and white. I'm going to go into light. Add a little bit of exposure. This one I want a little bit more open. There we go. Pump up that contrast. Go into color. Change the color temperature a little bit to create the look that you want. Do you want a really bright backdrop or a little bit less? There we go. Go into your black and white mix. Open up the face with red and orange sometimes. There we go. Look at this. No skin retouching necessary with this kind of shot. And now let's manipulate the backdrop a little bit. I like dark. Yep. No greens. Perfect. Okay. Let's go for effects. Let's give it a little bit of a vignette, some clarity. I think this is okay. Copy settings. Go for the next one. And first just paste it in and see if you like it. I actually do. Maybe add a little bit extra on the darker side. There we go. Like this. Do the same thing here. Paste. Nice. In this case, maybe take down the highlights just a little bit. No, don't. I think on this side it's a little bit too bright, so you can tone that down with your local adjustments. So just do your brush. I'm doing it with my finger now, so of course normally we're using an Apple Pencil, or when I'm doing it behind the computer, an XP pen. Or you can use Wacom, of course, but I like the XP pens just a little bit better. There we go, so that's better. Sometimes you have to change your lighting just a little bit. Okay, sorry. Done. Okay, let's go for this one. Paste. Oh, this one doesn't need anything. Really nice. Now in this case, I think the chest area is a little bit overexposed. And the first thing I'm going to try is to fix that with my color balance. So let's do the black and white mix and let's go for orange. There we go, just close that down just a little bit. Nice. And of course you can take out the strobe if you want. I didn't do it, but hey, if you want it. So when we look at what we did today already, and we're not done yet, is one great image. I like this one. This one I like. This one is a little bit for me, I don't know. Maybe if we crop it a little bit more aggressively, it can work. Yeah, that's better. This one also a little bit more aggressive on the top, a little bit more here. Yep. This one also a little bit more aggressive on the top and a little bit on the sides. Better. Also here a little bit more on the top. A little bit more on the top. Nice. Okay, so at first I told you guys, always make sure that you shoot in camera correctly, so you don't have to adjust anything later in Photoshop or Lightroom. And still you see me cropping a little bit off the top. The reason for this is very simple. I do like it without. So if I look at the shot like this, there's nothing wrong with the shot, so I shot it like this. And then later, when I look at the conversion in black and white, I go like, I really like the intensity of her look. I really like the way that her eyes are just piercing through. And in that case, when you take just a little bit off the top, you are drawn way more in. Do you see the difference between this one or that one? Now, if you say like, hey, I really like the eyes, but I want it a little bit more open, you can always go in here. You see one of the eyes. You go into local adjustments, and let me see if I can manage this with just a finger. And just go in. Yeah, this works way better with the Apple Pencil. Let's clone it out here just a little bit. And normally people will go like, oh, exposure, don't do that. Leave the exposure where it is, just control it with your highlights and your shadows. And with your contrast. As you can see here, that works way better, because if you also hit something that's a little bit of the eye white and use exposure, it sometimes just jumps out way too much. And of course you can still change anything you want there. And with the effects, I really like on the eyes to use a little bit of dehaze sometimes to create a little bit more oomph. Same with clarity and structure. There we go. And the eyes just pop a little bit more at the moment. So the original and the retouch version. So as you can see, there's a huge difference. And somehow in the black and whites, I just like my images to pop a little bit more. That's why we use that high contrast lighting. And again, if you look at it in color, it already looks okay, but it's not that magic moment. And when you go here, this is for me where it all comes together, and I like it a lot more. Okay, let's go back to picture in picture. Oh, we already are in picture, but let's go for the bigger one. And let's start with our next setup. We're going fast, right? Oh, I do want to add one more thing very quickly. This is the X-Rite, or Calibrite, sorry, the Calibrite color checker. This one has all the colors for photography, and this one is white balance. I never use that one, I always use this one. And you can always balance on one of those little squares. The cool thing about this one, the one with the blue ribbon, is actually that when you open it up on the other side, you also have the video setup. So you can set up your whites, your blacks, and your middle point, and also your color checker. Now, as mentioned before, these are also important when you shoot black and white. The reason is simple. Every light spectrum has different frequencies. So for example, blue is a different wavelength and red is a different wavelength than green. Now, our displays all work with RGB, so red, green and blue. When we look at real life, we of course have our primary colors, red, green and blue, and our secondary colors, cyan, magenta and yellow. When we determine the white point, we take the D65 point, D6500, and that's on the black body curve. I'm not going to explain that a lot. You can find it online, or you can just drop me an email about it. But when you look at the black body curve and that point, and you draw lines through your primary colors through the white point, you always end up in your secondary colors. So it's very important that everything is in balance, because if it's not in balance, think about a marionette with all those wires. If you cut one of the wires, it just drops down and it doesn't function anymore. If you twist the wires, you can't operate the puppet anymore. The puppet only works when all the wires are connected correctly and are under tension, because then you can work the puppet. And that's the same thing with your color space. If everything is connected correctly and you change one, the others will move around. And this is why it's incredibly important, so also with your black and white photography, to use a color checker or at least a white balance card. Frank, you changed the colors and the white balance, so what are you talking about? Very simple. If I change the white balance in a shot, I copy it to all the other shots. So that means that still my first image, shot with the color checker, is my base. And that means that if I write a preset on that shot with the color checker, I know that if I'm shooting it under tungsten light, fluorescent lights, outside, inside, it doesn't really matter. It's always that base. So when I change the color balance of that base, I change of course the color balance, but I'm always using it from the same starting point. Now in your presets, I highly advise you guys to not change the color balance, but leave it on as shot. When you're just freaking around like now, the color balance change can be really interesting to just change everything around and give it a different look. But most of the times we just do that in your black and white mixer, so with the luminance slider. Or if you're really adventurous in Photoshop, you can also still use that hue slider. In Lightroom that's a little bit more limited. Okay, let's go back to Cascable. Henri, can you turn my camera on and off again?
Yeah.
So turn it off. And on again. There we go, searching for camera. Did you turn it on, Annemiek?
Yeah.
Okay, retry connection. Should this be the day that I ran out of luck? Let's go back. Let's start up camera, reconnect. Annemiek, can you turn it off again?
Yeah.
I'm going to restart Cascable. Okay. Let's reconnect to the Sony camera. Ja, aan. Oh, stond hij nog uit? No, of course it needs to be on, otherwise it can't find the camera, Annemiek. Yeah, there we go. Always turn it on. Not off.
Turn it off. You didn't say turn it off.
Yeah, otherwise it can't find the camera, right? Okay, one moment. My iPad is acting up with the HDMI. Told you guys my luck was gonna run out one day. So let me switch over. Luckily we have two HDMI ports on the iPad. There we go.
Don't touch it.
Don't touch it. Don't move. Okay. Hey, for this setup, I'm not gonna make it very complicated. I just want to make it simple. I love her outfit, and for this setup, why not use that strip light again? But in this case, let's set it up a little bit different. And I want to show you guys something. Now, when I look at my strip light, and let's turn it on so you guys can actually see what I'm meaning. So when I look at the strip light, there's this center part, and there are the side parts. Now, because I'm using a grid, you can see that the center part is really bright, and the sides are a little bit softer. This is where the trick comes in. You can literally manipulate everything you want with that strip light. I'm going to show you two setups that I absolutely love. And that also translates very well back to black and white. The first one is actually very simple. I want to light the backdrop and I want to light my model. So I'm going to aim it up just a little bit. There we go. Aim it towards the model. There we go. Really like this. So against the backdrop. And now in all honesty, the center part I don't really use at the moment. It's more like an accent light maybe on her hair, but I'm gonna move my model a little bit more forward towards the darker side of that strobe. I want a really, really dark image, and I want my backdrop to really shine on. So it has to be a little bit in a balance. They have to fight for each other. So the backdrop is just as important as the model. Now, if I want my model to be more important, I move my model a little bit more towards the center of that strobe, and I can aim it a little bit more towards her. But first, let's set it up like this. 4.0. Okay, nice shallow depth of field. So why not? Now, of course, you can set it on everything you want. You can set it on f4, you can set it on 2.8. That's the nice thing about strobes. But in this case, why not? Let's do f4. Okay. There we go. So now with one strobe, we have a really nice light on our backdrop, and we have a really nice dark model shot. Really like it. Also like the Rembrandt lighting. If I want a little bit more contrast, I'm just going to stand here. And I love that her eyes are just popping out. Not popping out like an, you know what I mean, right? It's not a horror movie. So it's a little bit too dark for my taste. So let's let our model look all the way over there. Shoot from a slightly lower angle. There we go. Really like this. Like the contrast. Like the shot. It's very filmic. Can you tilt your body a little bit towards the light? Like that. Yes, there we go. Shooting from a lower angle up. Oh, there we go again. Sorry, guys. I hope I don't have to replace the camera, but it does look that way. Nice. Maybe a little bit more from here. No. It keeps changing the settings by itself. It's a very active camera, let me put it that way. No. Just keeps changing the settings. Okay, can you hold your arms like this? A little bit like, yeah, both. Yes, there we go. Caress the fur. There we go. Nice. Nice. The shutter speed is jumping up and down between an 80th to 250 and whatever. So it's really frustrating, guys. Sorry for that. Normally we don't have any problems with these cameras, but okay, I love the contrast here. Maybe I'm gonna clone out the strip light, but I really like the way that this works. Now, what if I want a little bit less light on the backdrop? Okay, let's move this light. There we go. There will be a little bit more on the model, so I'm gonna go, just to be sure, to f5. Of course, you have to remeter. Oh, love this. Nice. Okay, let's change the shutter speed back again. Awesome. Nice. It's a little bit overexposed, as you can see here. Again, I don't know what the camera is doing, but it's doing something different from me. So let's see if we can change those settings back for now. Let's force it into... There we go. Maybe this is better. There you go. Nice. So, again, I really love how the model just jumps out at you. It's a little bit too less on the backdrop, don't you agree? Yes, we need that backdrop in. And as you can see, I'm just hitting it, just very slightly with 2 fingers, so it's maybe 2 centimeters. And look at the difference this has on the image. A lot more. There we go. I'm almost shooting flat on, but I'm still having a little bit of the triangle there. Go from the side. The strip light will be in the image, I can take it out, but I like that the strip light is close. Remember the Venetian blinds? The closer the strip light is, the faster the light will fall off. If I place the strip light all the way to the back, I'm lighting a lot of stuff and I don't want it. I really want that pinpointing light quality. But that's only one setup. Let's use that strip light in a slightly different way. So let's take that strip light and go here. Don't hit your model. They don't like that. Can you move a little bit to the back? Nice, love it. Can you stand against the wall maybe? Love it. Okay, let's overdo this. There we go. Aim the light all the way down. Maybe we call this the everything good comes from above lighting setup. Okay. Can you see the light? Or does it have to be a little bit more angled down?
I see the light, yeah.
Better or worse?
No.
Okay, great. Awesome, great. Don't hit it. Okay, let's remeter. Hold hold it in front of the area you want correctly lit. 5.68. So let's go down 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 5.6. Okay. 5.6. I'm going to shoot from a slightly lower angle up. Let's take this cable out. There we go. And as you can see here, by using that light so close to our model, we get this really nice wraparound effect of that light, but it's still very harsh. So although it lights a lot around our model, also the light fall off is very fast on the bottom. And that's because we're using that strip light now horizontal. So I'm lighting my whole backdrop, I'm lighting my model, but after that the light really falls off, and that works great under an angle. So let's say that I'm going here, zooming out just a little bit more, and there we go, look at this. Just with one strip light. Do you see how the model really gets the attention of the lighting? But what if you want to finish this off? You want to make it great, you want to make it awesome. Well, you can do that. Remember that you could angle that light? Well, we can do the same thing here. We can do it a little bit like this. And if you're really adventurous, you could choose to do this. And just aim it a little bit more away from our model. So we're going to light a little bit more of the body. And the backdrop will be a little bit different. But you have to shoot from a really low angle to cut out the strobe. There you go. Now you have a more side lighting. Do you see this? I really like this. It really sculpts the model. And the backdrop, of course, really helps with this. So let's shoot it a little bit more contrasty. Look straight into the light if you want, Lois. Center your eyes. Awesome. Look at this. Can you also shoot it from the other side? Yes, and it gives you a totally different look. You might expect it, but it's different than you think. Look at this. Because now I'm actually shooting towards a darker backdrop because the light is aimed that way. So also here you have this beautiful switch between almost flat lighting, high contrast lighting, and of course that beautiful lighting from the front. This really classic. Okay, can you stand straight in front of me? There we go, love it. That's what I mean, yes. Love it. Cool. Now you might wonder, Frank, I don't have an expensive softbox. I only have an open reflector. Will it ever look right? Should we try it with an open reflector? I think so, yes. Yeah, I think so too. So let's take this one out. Annemiek, if you can help me really fast. Or no, just wait. I will do it differently. Let's turn this one up first. Yes, can you change this one for a normal reflector, Annemiek, please? Awesome. Close your eyes, please. Yeah, that was wise to close your eyes. It was on full power.
Okay.
I don't want to make you blind. Okay, let's move that up. And aim it down. Can you see straight through the lens? Yes, okay, cool. Straight through the grid, by the way, because if she sees straight through the grid, she's in the center. So let's grab a light meter again. Any questions, Annemiek, in the chat? No? Okay, cool. 2.04. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And a lot. 2.88. Okay, let's go to f4. 1, 2. Okay, that's f4. So this is first without that extra light from the back. Just an open reflector, oh sorry, a gridded reflector on f4. There we go. I try to not have any reflections or shadows on the back. So let's aim it straight at our model. There we go, really like this. But in all honesty, when I look at the shot like this, I think, you know what would be really cool with this? Just a little bit of lens flare. So although I said we're not going to do any lens flare, of course we're going to do some lens flares. So let's switch this one over to the side. Oops. But I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm not going to aim it straight at our model, because the model is against the back. I'm actually going to aim it straight at my camera. There we go. Now remember the image you see now. This is without that extra lighting. Let's see what happens when we add that extra light. Now this is of course way too much, but I wanted to show you what happens. Do you see that lens flare literally just also works on the backdrop, even if I don't aim it towards my backdrop? How is that possible? Lens flare actually hits your sensor and scatters around and opens up some shadows. And of course it reflects back because I'm using an open reflector. It bounces back towards me, towards the model. You can also see that it hits the model just a little bit from the sides. By lowering the output, I now have tremendous control over how it looks. So let's turn it down more. Because we don't want it to be too much, but just a little bit. There we go. This I really like. Awesome. Now of course it helps that on my camera I have a black mist filter, or black diffusion is the official name. So let's take that filter off and let's show you the difference, because of course it also works without, but it's just a little bit less nice. As you can see, this is without. You still get that nice milky creamy look, but with the filter, it's really nice. And of course, you can go closer to your model. Let's do that. Let's do a real nice close-up. And if you don't want that extra lighting in, just crop it out. There you go, but I don't like that. In all honesty, I actually love that backlighting. So I'm actually going to enhance it by going even lower and aiming it straight at that light source. There we go, look at that quality of light. But now because we're shooting with that backlighting, now I can also take this one, move it to the side, and maybe create a little bit more of an angle in my shot. Aim it just a little bit down. Watch the eyes. There we go. Look that way if you want. There we go. Now what's the nose shadow? We don't want a harsh nose shadow like you see now. When I'm moving my light to the side, I'm actually creating a very nice shadow side behind my model. That's also why I aimed my light up, because we want that shadow to be behind my model. But look at the nose. This is a really nasty nose shadow, which I don't want. So I'm going to ask my model to look that way. There we go. That's awesome. Zoom out a little bit more. And there we go. Nice. Okay, let's go into Photoshop again and let's see what we can do with these shots. Or Lightroom, of course. We don't even need Photoshop for this. Although we still love Photoshop, of course. Okay, let's go back to my cam. Okay, so let's switch over. Let's do the big one. There we go. Okay. Let's do select all. Let's copy that to tethering. Awesome. Let's go to Lightroom. Let's add some images. select all and open. This is the nice thing about Lightroom on the iPad. You just drag and drop and everything just comes in. The only thing you have to be careful for on location is that you don't sync over, of course, your hotspot from your phone, because then your data will go down very quickly. Now we have unlimited data, but it really takes up a lot of your data if you sync on location. So we normally don't do that. Okay, images are in. Let's do the same thing again. Let's find what I like. Oh, it's still importing, sorry. There we go. It should be 139. Oh, 138, also fine. Okay, let's see. Nope, don't like that one. I do like this one. That one is not good. No, don't like that one. Close their eyes. Don't like the pose. The pose makes it a little bit too wide. Expression. I do like this one, but no. This one is cool. That's better. Let's do this. And sometimes I have a little bit trouble with hands, and with Lois it's always good. Or always good. She normally just knows very well what to do with her hands. And this is one of the tips that I also want to give you guys. Do you see the eyes here? Now this is okay, but in all honesty, I like to see the whole eye or no eye at all. So in this case, no, but it's only because when I switch this side, I have them both. So otherwise I would have kept this one because I do like the shot, but this one is just better for the very simple reason now you see both eyes correctly. So let's do that in a plus. Oh, that's even nicer. Look at that. And as you can see, I'm constantly switching between what I like and what I don't like. This one is also cool, but then I have to take the strip light out later. And that's the part where I still use Photoshop. I can do it in Lightroom, but I still prefer Photoshop for that kind of stuff. Okay, let's take one more and then just do the retouch. Oh, this one is also nice. That's the problem. I have way too many images that I like. Oh, look at that one. I think this is my favorite set. I also like the clothing a lot, and sometimes you have that, right? Some sets just work better than others. And I think this is without a doubt my favorite one. This was a little bit too much. Oh, this one is cool. That's okay. Yeah, I don't like that nose shadow, so let's take that one out. Okay, cool. So let's filter again on 5 stars and more. And we're gonna go do the same thing. Too dark, like it, like that one better. Yep. If I have to choose, I like them both. So keep that in, like that one, that's okay. That's much better. Like that one too. That one I love, and this one I love. Okay, so first things first. Let's just see if we have a preset. Let's do this one with presets. So this is my own preset pack. And we have a lot of with color, of course, but let's go for the black and whites. Let me see. We call them black and whites. Duh. I think the film noir will look really nice here. Ooh, like that one too. That's better. That's too much. I think that this one is a great starting point. So before, in the first images, I actually started from 0 and built it up to what I sometimes call hero, from 0 to hero. In this case, I just want to start with my preset. And that doesn't mean that I have to end there, because now I can just literally change whatever I want in that preset. I think this is awesome. Copy settings. And let's see if we can change some more. Vignetting is nice. There we go, a little bit of clarity, not too much. Okay. And let's go for color again. And let's do that black and white mix. Do that red. Red is the lips. The orange one is a little bit of her skin. There we go. And the yellow one with lowers also affects it. There we have the blue of our backdrop. Make it darker or appear more. I think I like this. Now that I open it up a little bit, I'm actually open for a little bit more vignetting. There we go, love it. Copy settings. Now, of course, normally we do a little bit more with the skin because now you can see that there's a little bit of unevenness there. You can do that in Lightroom. I'm going to show you that in a second, but mostly the skin work we will do in Photoshop. And we will use plugins like Image Normal Portraiture or Luminar IE, which does a great job with skin. And let's be honest, you can do it manually, but why do all the work when you have a plugin that does it 100%? Or let me put it that way, that does it 99% as good as you can do with hand, probably even better. And I've been retouching skin for many years, and we started out with dots and burn and all the other stuff. And at one point I just said, you know what, just use the plugins. It's way easier, it's way faster, and it looks great. Why not? In this case, I think the backdrop is a little bit too obnoxious, so we want to knock that backdrop down just a little bit. So go to black and white mix, remember it's the blues, there you go, just knock the backdrop down, or up, or down. And this proves that you really have to think ahead. You can't just shoot it. You have to think, what do I want, which combinations do I use, and can I later manipulate it? And there we go. And a lot of the great photographers that you know, they all think this way. They all think about how can I later control in Lightroom or Photoshop my image. Of course you can do it with select subjects and change stuff, but it's way better to use it via your color channels because you don't have to make that selection. And when you make sure that the model doesn't wear anything that's blue and your backdrop is blue, you're golden. That works like a charm. Now, if you have a red backdrop, that's a little bit more tricky because red is also in the skin. So at that point, you of course do a selective subject or you just protect the skin or the model. Okay, it looks great. So you wanted to see a little bit about how I do skin in Lightroom. Now, again, normally I use the skin retouching methods more in Photoshop, so with Image Normal Portraiture or of course with, for example, Luminar IE. But you can do it in Lightroom. Go for selective. So go for the brush. And what we're going to do, I'm just going to show it here. So I'm going to paint this in. I'm going to do only a part so you can literally see the difference. There we go. So we have to make sure that it's 100%. There we go. And soft brush, great. So this is fine. Maybe make the brush a little bit bigger. Okay. Now you go into effects, and the first thing you're going to do is texture all the way down, clarity all the way down, and you're going to dehaze this. A little bit that it fits nicely together. There you go. You see that dehaze literally just moves the shadows. And that's the nice thing about dehaze, because with clarity, let me put that back for you guys so you can see it. Okay, let's double click. There we go. So when I only use dehaze, it doesn't look right. Do you see that? It looks really bad. But when I first turn down my texture, turn down my clarity, you see that it's already blowing out a little bit. And now dehaze is actually used to bring those shadows back. But you don't get those nasty things in the skin back. So there you go. Really nice. And now, of course, you can still go into light. You can change the highlights just a little bit. You can change the shadows. And, of course, you can add contrast to your skin. There you go. In my opinion, this works like a charm if you have to do retouching on skin that's already good. So in this case of Lois has great skin, so you don't really need retouching. And then in Lightroom, it works like a charm. I do have to take that out, but that's very easy. You can do that with your healing brush. You can just take that out very, very easily. There you go. And you're done. So Lightroom is really nice with this. See, no problem at all. Okay. Hey guys, that was it for today. I would like to thank the guys from PhotoWhoa very much for inviting me over. And I have a question for you guys. Let the guys from PhotoWhoa know that you really like this episode and that you want to see more, because we have way more to tell you guys. How about alternative lighting, the best portrait lighting, the best fashion lighting, freezing motion, and whatnot more. So make sure you let PhotoWhoa know that you want us back, and who knows, maybe it happens. The second tip I want to give you guys is look on the website from PhotoWhoa. They have a lot of great deals with plugins, with software, presets and ebooks and whatnot more. They have a really nice selection. And there's also some stuff, of course, from me on there, like the speedlight tutorial, I think, mastering the model shoot tutorials. The book is there, the ebook about the speedlight. So they have a lot of stuff also from me, but also from a lot of other photographers.
Glamour light of the old
Oh,
masters.
Glamour Light of the Old Masters. That's something on PhotoWhoa that you really have to get. PhotoWhoa Glamour Light of the Old Masters. That's one of the videos that really goes into the more advanced lighting techniques, also for that really nice hardcore look. So I would like to thank you so very much for watching, guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the chat or leave them in the comments. I will get back to you within 24 hours. Also, when it's already online for a week or so. We always check YouTube at least twice a day.
Thank you for the compliments.
Thank you for the compliments. Thank you for watching. And Anna also says thank you very much. And we would love to thank also PhotoWhoa and of course our beautiful model Lois. Guys, the images will be posted online tomorrow or the day after. So make sure you check that out too, so you see the real end results, not these one. And well, stay safe, keep shooting and stay creative. And always remember, this is the one where I want to go out with. There is no failure. It may sound weird if you do something wrong, you think you failed. No, it's just one step closer to perfection. And if you see failure like that, you will never be disappointed, because if you do something wrong, you know why it went wrong, and now you are one step closer to the solution. You only fail when you stop trying, and especially with lighting setups like this, it can be very complicated. Sometimes it can go really wrong because you're working with such narrow lines of light. Don't go back to that big softbox and just blow the hell out of everything. Make sure that you first master pinpoint lighting, and you can even use your phone for that, and flashlight on your phone. Just find something and just move around with your flashlight and see what shadows do, especially when you go up and down. That's a real eye-opener sometimes. I think that's it. Again, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for